good to go, Kathy? All right, I'll call this Development Committee meeting to order. Kathy, will you call roll, please?
Carter, Lee,
Here.
Walther.
Here. All right, stand for the pledge. Timmy, you got it?
I sure do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll dive right in here. Andy, you good? You
Good.
Good to go?
Sorry about that.
No worries. Happens. No worries at all. We will start with talking about the corporate park rezoning. Tim or Scott, you want to give a quick rundown on where we're at with that? It doesn't matter who does, who takes it from here.
Scotty and I say
Scotty, you
it
got
would
it?
be him.
Okay, go for it.
So I know you gentlemen are familiar with this. There's three remaining residential properties on Refugee Road within the corporate park. There's been discussions about the city rezoning those properties on behalf of property owners. We met with the property owners. All are in favor of having the city do that. The first item in the packet is a letter where they all signed and agreed to do so. And the other maps show the properties. There's a zoning map showing that they're zone residential to C plan manufacturing. And the last one's from the comprehensive plan that recommends the property for innovation, which matches
Sure.
the whole corporate park. So with a recommendation from Development Committee, the city will move forward on behalf of those residents to rezone the property from R87 to plain manufacturing.
And I know Andy and we're pretty up to speed on this. I know you are. What would you want that, assuming there's no comments? Well, give Andy the opportunity here, but what would you want that recommendation to be?
That the planning and zoning department move forward with the rezoning the properties.
Okay, just that simple. We don't need to push it a certain direction, just,
No, I
Okay.
would say rezone from R87 to plain
I'm gonna
manufacturing.
say, I'm gonna just add, exactly, Scott. I'm gonna make a motion that we recommend to the Planning and Zoning Department to move forward with rezoning this to be consistent with the remainder of the corporate park, which would be a innovation zoning per the comprehensive plan.
I'll just second that.
Lee,
Yes.
Walther.
Yes.
Just like that.
Just like that. Eileen, you're welcome to stay, but,
I may stick around.
okay,
No,
all right. Next is the residential appearance standards. I'm also going to push that over to Scott.
Thank you, sir. So with the residential appearance standards, there's a plan that's been approved preliminarily through the preliminary plan stage called Forest Ridge off 310. Pulte was interested in developing the property, but found they could not meet three of the development, the residential appearance standard requirements. Those are on the first page of the packet in the email. The property is zoned R15, and per the regulations, you cannot obtain a variance from those regulations. The only way you can deviate from the regulations is through a planned development district ordinance that's approved by council. So we have two gentlemen here this evening that would like to get some feedback on the possibility, should they move forward with the planned development district, to see if these deviations would be something that would be entertained. So with that, I'll turn it over to these gentlemen, but I believe there needs to be a motion.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you so this currently is not a PDD, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the discussion is whether or not to do a PDD or not?
The question would be, the only way you can get deviations, essentially a variance, would be to rezone it to be PDD.
Okay,
But they're interested in seeing if they were to go through that process, would these deviations be something that would be entertained?
okay, I understand. All right, so both of you wanna speak or just one? Just,
I'm gonna make a motion.
Yeah, I was gonna ask
Yeah,
that.
I'm gonna make a motion that we allow the Pulte representative to address the committee.
second,
Lee,
yes.
Walther.
Yes.
And we have some of their model homes and
Okay.
the preliminary plan up on the screens for reference.
Yeah.
If they
I've-
They're also in your packet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for now, we got it in our packet, I don't know that we need to do the slideshow unless there's something specific, we got right here, so. Name and address, please.
Jim Hills, 475 Metro Place South, Dublin, Ohio, 43017.
Okay, and you're with Pulte?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, floor's
Okay.
yours.
Well, again, Jim Hills with Pulte Homes. Thank you for the opportunity to really, try to get some clarity. We have been working with Mr. Fannin for almost a year on Forest Ridge. We really like the site. It's a unique site, a number of lots that back up to open space. We think it would be a really nice subdivision once it gets moving. But we have, as a production builder, we have struggled with the appearance standards that in your code. Really, I'll go through a number of the issues that we have, and I can show you some examples with the slideshow. But the two biggest issues are, for us, are the front porch requirement, not the width requirement, but the depth requirement of 7 feet, and the garage setback. Most of the homes, the large majority of the homes that we build in central Ohio cannot and will not meet that garage setback for a front load garage. We can meet it with the side load garage, but not the front load garage. We do have a series of homes that I will show you where 3 of the 4 houses can meet that setback requirement, and that they're a relatively new product to central Ohio, and it would be what we would propose. But again, we have that issue with the front porch. A couple of other things or questions, and I guess I'm not expecting feedback tonight. It's questions that I could follow up in an email, but don't really would like to understand better what, when you look at vinyl houses, what a detailed main entryway by use of a minimum 8-inch wide 3-dimension door surround system actually means. What does that mean for the front door location, detailed main entryway, just a little more clarity in terms of what that means. When you get into the 4-sided architecture, there's a requirement to have 3 design elements per floor. We understand that when you have houses that are backing up to each other, but when you have houses that are backing up to open space where really nobody can see those houses, is that necessary? The other thing is what we do in those situations, what we call high impact elevations. So if it's the side of the house or a rear of the house where it can be seen from the street, we do add architecture elements, additional architecture elements, and we'll put that in the code voluntarily to dress up those particular sides of the homes to make them look better. The other question I have with regard to the 4-sided architecture, it's the list of approved design elements under A, which is 1296.10, is really limited. And I have a list as an example of other things that are considered architectural elements. Didn't know if there is an administrative process where they could just be approved. Elements that we would submit could be approved administratively, or would council have to go back and add those to the list? Because I think if I go back, I don't have it in front of me, but there's only a few things that are listed under that, under the list that's in the ordinance itself. So, one of the problems, let me just show you real quick if I could.
I think you can scroll with the wheel, or it has
Oh.
the. Yeah.
Like this, okay. I just gave you some examples, but this is, so, of the series of homes I was talking about that where the garage would meet that 4-foot setback requirement, it's a 35-foot wide house, so it's a deeper house. It does come with a 3-car garage option, front load. But again, that front porch doesn't necessarily meet. Just give you some other examples in different elevations. There's a 3-car garage elevation. This is another model. And this here is where we're building these, is by far the most popular model that we build. The problem with this one is that the garage only sits back a foot, not 4 feet. So that would be a problem. Again, we do have the side load option that we could build this house. So for the garage part, we could make this house work in this series. And just, we always try to, this is actually the model home in Beulah Park right here. This is one of the places in Central Ohio we're building this. We typically add 2 ranches, and the garage will meet for diversity of product in communities these days. The garage will meet, but we still have the front porch requirement, and this is another example of a ranch model that we offer, and probably would include in Forest Ridge, just as an option. We probably wouldn't build very many of them, but we do like to at least offer it. One of the things I wanted to point out with regard to, I'm trying to get you the best picture here. This would be a good picture. One of the concerns we have with that 7 foot, it's not just as easy as bumping the front porch out 2 feet to make it work. What we would run into is the slope of that roof over the porch, extending it out 2 feet, will run us right into that window above the porch roof, with the 412 roof pitch, which is required for a secondary roof. So that's a concern that comes up with extending that porch. The one thing I didn't know, and I think it's clear, but I just will pose the question, is that 7 foot depth required for the entire porch or just a portion of it? And I think it's the entire front porch as I read it, but I'm not sure. Certain parts of this front porch would meet 7 feet because the door sits back farther, but it has to be 7 feet from the frontmost living area of the house.
I'll have Scott check on that.
It would be a minimum of 7 throughout the entire porch.
Okay. So that's really the extent of the comments I have. The other homes that I've included in here are examples of what we build around Central Ohio. With the front load garage, none of those homes would comply with the standards. We're building the models that we would like to make work here in Jerome Village, in Westerville, and as I mentioned, Beulah Park. But we really don't have any other product that even comes close. And that includes our highest end product that we're building around Central Ohio. So again, we see these types of ordinances around Central Ohio. For the most part, we have product that will work. But this is a situation where we're trying to see what we can do to take advantage of the opportunity that Forest Ridge presents to us.
If you don't mind, I'm just looking at your slides that you provided for us. The Woodward has a couple different variations to it, obviously a couple different roof lines. So is there a way to, I understand what you're saying about the depth of the porch and stuff. Let's forget about the garage for a moment. But in the previous one, you have a Woodward that has obviously a porch that it comes out of the front, expands off the front. That one you were just on just a moment. That one. So you're not saying that one's going to that one would be a problem, right? The one previous to that with that front, what do I want to call it? The pitched roof. Yeah.
The way the roof.
Yeah, that one's a problem.
Yes.
But this one wouldn't be, correct?
Other than.
In what you described.
Yeah, right.
Okay. I was just trying to make sure I understood. I haven't looked at this yet, so I just wanted to make sure I understood because, I know.
To be perfectly honest with you, I shouldn't have included that.
Well, that's okay. But I mean, you guys are creative. I've worked with you guys on other projects, so you guys are creative, and I know you guys can come up with different roof lines that are the same essential house. They're just a maybe a small change to the front facade or for the front roof line to make them accommodate certain features. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, was that there are a couple of them that I can see. You don't have a lot of options, but there's a few of them that I would think that you could do it with to make that 7-foot work if you could still work with the garage. In this situation, the garage wouldn't work with the 4 foot or whatever the.
Actually, with this one, it would.
This one would work with the
Yeah.
4 foot. So this one would meet all the standards, except for the
If-
3-sided.
If we were to make the decision to extend that front porch out 2 feet, and that's not a decision.
I'm just asking if that's, yeah, so I'm just trying to understand what portions of it work and what portions don't. Okay,
That's one of my questions is why, I guess, why can't you meet these? Is it a cost issue? Is it it doesn't work with these size lots? Why can't you meet these? And I'm looking at the email sent with the 3 different things on it.
Well, I mean, as Mr. Walter pointed out, certain elevations, may work. It becomes a cost decision that we have to make, in, what they cost. We think we built a really nice house. We think that, is there some minor things that we can do that, where we could work together to come to some type of a compromise to make what we're building work. These are, I don't think that ideally this is the model we would want to build here, but this is the model that comes closest.
Why not?
Just in terms of evaluating the market, other products, different size homes. These are 70-foot wide lots. We would probably build a house that's a little bit wider than this on 70-foot wide lots.
Yeah, and, I mean, keep in mind that, we've all heard of Intel by now, right? And we know that there's a big boom coming, and we know that there's gonna be a lot of developers coming in front of us and wanting to build in Pataskala. And, I'm open to that, but I think we put the design standards in place and the impact fees in place so that we can be picky. And I think that, I think we're definitely willing to work with people, but if it's something where, whether it's Pulte or whoever, just doesn't wanna spend the money to make the changes to be able to meet our standards, then, I think that they're kinda losing an opportunity to be in front of a big boom coming, because I think there's a lot of potential for multiple, not just Pulte, developers to kinda come in here and partner with us. So I think that, we're definitely open to things. I don't know if a PDD's been discussed yet, but I think that, I'm not looking at your list anymore. I'm looking at the lot. Can you pull that up, Scott? The preliminary plan,
The layout.
the layout of the,
Jim, if you click on the
Oh, you
next
have it,
tab
sorry.
on the top left.
I
The, I don't know if you can see it. There's a tab.
It's this.
open.
this is what I'm looking for.
Up here,
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
that one.
Aside from the design standard discussions, I have concerns with how dense that is, and I have concerns with the fact that it has one way in and one way out, the traffic impacts of that. So I don't know if it's you guys don't want to, I don't know if it's a cost thing, or if it's you know how many lots you have to meet a certain bottom line. But I think if you're willing to work with us on, maybe making that a little bit less dense and making these lots a little bit bigger, and maybe, I know there's not a variance process right now for the design standards, but I think that, maybe a PDD could be considered, but, I think we're always willing to work with people, but as long as they're willing to work with us.
well, and the decision on lot sizes is Mr. Fana's decision, not our decision, in terms of willingness to change that. I only really brought up 2 points from the architectural
Right.
appearance standards. I mean, there's a lot of the other parts of those standards that there's a cost associated with them.
Sure.
trying to be here, you know, and I didn't wanna come in and, you know, I don't wanna be adversarial and.
No,
and
we're just letting you know.
We understand that,
We're
you know, a
communicating.
lot of those things are what you want to include in your code, and that's
Yeah.
important to you. It's just that these two particular issues are the ones that are creating some difficulty in
Right.
terms of us trying to meet them. And like, really, it does come down to that, it's for the most part, it's 2 feet on the front on that front porch. And
Yeah, I guess if you're looking for my input on it, I would say that, you know, see what you can do and come back to us and talk to us about it. But I think these design standards are in place for a reason, and, you know, while we do want to work with you, it doesn't sound, you know, I'm not an architect or an engineer, but it doesn't sound like it's that big of an issue to, and according to Andy, there might be a couple houses in there we can work with.
Yeah. So if you don't mind.
Nope, all
I've got a
you.
couple. So if you were to rank these 1 through 3, what would be the most important item that you would want us to consider and the least important item out of the 3? Per your email on February 1st. And the reason why I asked that is because I think there's some give and take in how you do it.
I mean, the four-sided architecture, you know, I get it. You know, backing up to open space, it's a question more than anything. You know, the cost issues are, you know, it's just
You probably
it's
understand.
1 and 1A.
You probably understand probably as good as anybody. This stuff comes from when other builders come in and do stuff that everybody looks at and says, you know, don't ever let that happen again, you know, kind of thing. Not holding that, not saying that Pulte's ever done that, and I'm certainly not insinuating that in any way, but there have been others that have come in here. You can drive around Pataskala and see some, and they're pretty bad. And that's why that, so I'm gonna just go back a few years and kind of talk about, you know, a moratorium that was put in place, of getting these things in place because of those concerns. I'm not as much into the issue of density as maybe others might be, only because I look at this and say it's under two units per acre. I feel like that's a pretty decent density in my opinion. And I think the value of the homes will be as high as what we are trying to get, and those, so that kind of hits that piece for me. But at the same time, there was a very, very long discussion, and Scott probably can attest to this. There were many, many meetings talking about these development standards, these design standards. And while the four-sided architect was one of the big ones, so that's why I wanted to kind of get your feeling on that. Even though it does back up to green space in areas, I would point out that some of your green spaces probably aren't more than 20 feet wide in certain areas. They really pinch down in some areas, and I know this is a heavily ravined site. So you're gonna have houses that sit up on ravines, and then there's gonna be a green space between them. So does that make sense, that you're gonna see this lower elevation green space, but you're still gonna be looking at houses across that ravine?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
it does.
that's why I'm just trying to give you an answer on that one to try to help with that. I think there are some spots where there's nobody gonna ever see the back of a house. Unfortunately, we don't have a variance process that says, you know, on number, whatever number those are, the back lots against the big green space. You can do that on those. That's okay, that's not a big deal. Does that make sense?
You don't wanna I get, like, you don't wanna do that lot by lot.
Right.
Right?
That would be a
It's
nightmare
the
for
standard
you, and it'd be a
applies
nightmare
across-
for Scott.
Yes.
For me,
The
not so
standard
bad,
applies across the
but
board.
for you guys, it would be terrible.
I get it.
So that's where I would point out on on your third of your four-sided architecture one, because your site isn't flat and there aren't huge green spaces in between that are gonna be well wooded and you can't see the houses. I think backyards are gonna actually see each other in these situations. So that one, I would ask you to really think about that question a little bit further.
And honestly, like I said, that's 3 out of 3.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I mean, it's.
So
you
that
know,
would be
I
my
bring it up-
third also. Okay, so then the other two, I would look to Scott, and we brought this out of, essentially Canal Winchester was where these design standards really were, brought from.
I worked for the BIA for 14 years. They started in Dublin, and they have.
It
that's
gets
what's-
worked around.
And I understand, we went through this in Pickerington and a bunch of different communities, and.
So I was gonna ask you, I noticed that you have communities in Pickerington.
Mhm.
And so how do you handle these exact situations? Because I know they exist in Pickerington. Maverick, they were worse in Pickerington than what, because we looked at Pickerington's and took a ton of stuff out from Pickerington that, you know, we didn't want to have, you know, to be so, structured and strict. So these, in my opinion, are definitely a lot less restrictive than Pickerington. So I wanted to ask, in these two situations with your front load garage and your porches, how do you handle those in Pickerington?
You know, I have to go back and look at their requirements, but some of the houses, the examples I put in here, we can't build there, or can't build here because of the garage and the front porch. I would have to go back and see, I'm assuming that doesn't apply, the garage and the front porch.
Okay.
In Pickerington.
Okay.
I will go,
I'm-
and I was
I'm going to rely on Scott to kind of answer that one to see what he thought about that. I'm not pushing back on this. Our biggest thing was, and I think, Tommy, you were part of these discussions as well as I was, that, you know, keeping the value of the houses at the high, you know, at a good value for residents that, such as this, a high-end residence, and keeping that look of not having just a face, you know, looking down a row of houses and they're all exactly lined up. So I would look to say, how do you keep that from happening? You gotta be creative and tell us how you're gonna keep that from happening.
Well, and we have some of our own rules in place for, we call it it's a diversity chart we use for colors and for elevations. So they have to be mixed, and so that it doesn't look, you don't see the same model 3 houses in a row.
Well, that's a different standard. I know that one's in there too.
I know you have.
That one's in there too, because we were very concerned
Yeah.
about, what I'm talking about is if you look, and you do have some streets that are kind of just right straight. If you're looking down that row, are they all lining up? Everything's right to the same line, so when you look down through there, there's no back and forth. Everything is just one set wall of house. And maybe that's okay in some places, but that's what we were trying to avoid. I'm just giving you some background on that, just to let you understand what the purpose was.
So you're not looking at the garage.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Yes.
So you guys, I know you guys are pretty talented and pretty creative, so I would just look to say, tell us what you can do to make that not happen.
Okay.
And if that, and I'm speaking only for myself, but if you answer those questions, to me, I can live with that. If it's like, well, this is it, and we're gonna build them straight across, and we can't, you know, make that garage, you know, any further out of that patio further out, I'm gonna say, well, you're not accomplishing what we're gonna tell every other builder they can't do. You know, that doesn't seem right. So those would be my two. Does that help for what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, we're not asking to push the garage out 6 feet from the house.
Right.
You know, I think when I've seen these types of ordinances in other communities, there is a variance process that does allow some change. Canal Winchester has a variance process where they can make some changes.
Okay, well, you know, Scott, I'm gonna look to Scott to say, you know, if there's something in here that we can work with, in my opinion, again, only, if we can work with Pulte on this to see how we can get this to work, where we can, you're very well aware of what we were concerned about when we were going through these. I think that this isn't going to be, certainly, a neighborhood that resembles some of the ones that we used as our examples of what we didn't wanna see. So I'm not as worried about that, but of course, we do have these standards in place. They are, you know, they were voted for, and they're part of the way to develop property in Pataskala. You know, the three legs of the stool, essentially. These are one of them. Impact fees are another, and the comprehensive plan was a third. So that's how we got to the point where we could really start to, I think, be comfortable. The council could be comfortable with looking at development in Pataskala, continuing development in Pataskala, not just doing 2-acre lots or 10-acre lots or whatever. You know, do something that is like this. I'm gonna echo something that Tommy said. You know, and I think this can be looked at, Watcon knows this stuff as good as anybody. You know, the connectivity, at least having an alternate way out. You know, I see you've got 1 stub, maybe 2 stubs in this whole, in the back phases. I don't know how you're gonna phase this, but certainly those back 2 phases should be looked at for stubs to the adjoining properties. Just
And
my opinion.
I'd just like to clarify something on that too, and I realize that, you guys are limited right now with one way. I don't know, I'll let Scott talk about connecting to Apple Blossom, but when I say, what I wanna clarify is when I say I have density concerns, it's because there's only one way in and one way out.
Okay.
I have density concerns. I know it does meet the standard, and I also realize that, the topography of 310 and the impact that all those homes, people trying to come in and out of there with the hills and everything and the way that lays is gonna be a nightmare during rush hour with one way in, one way out, and 200 and how many homes back in
255 is what this says.
And I know that's not all your fault because it is limited, but it's a concern of mine. It really is, with the impact on 310.
Yeah, well, we're gonna ask for something that we're probably gonna be sorry for anyhow, because if we do wanna connect,
I don't know that we can,
essentially,
because that's Harrison.
if we, well, all we're gonna do is make that
Go ahead,
work.
Scotty.
Yeah,
So this went through and was approved with a preliminary plan. There was discussions of making a connection to Apple Blossom. However, the incline from the end of that cul-de-sac down to those lots was very steep. So that created a problem. Then there was the look at, do we make an emergency access? Again, it was very steep, but then that's Harrison Township's right away, then we're come into the subdivision. Fire department wasn't gonna maintain it, the city wasn't gonna maintain it. It would fall to the HOA, which, as we've seen sometimes with retention ponds, they don't get maintained very well. So we were concerned about having the need for the emergency access and it not be able to handle fire trucks and other emergency personnel getting in. So with that, we revisited the one entrance onto 310, and due to site distance issues and everything, the developer agreed to install a light at that location
Okay.
in order to
Similar
regulate
to
traffic
Broadview.
better, to make sure that with that one access point, and it is boulevard, so it's wide, to make sure that folks are safely able to get in and out, and the fire district was okay with that.
Yeah, because I don't know that we'd want I don't think it would be fair to dump any traffic out onto Apple Blossom. That's not fair to the residents up there, even though they're Harrison Township. They're strong neighbors.
That
And
was
we-
our concern,
and
and
I wouldn't want
going
that.
that way is even worse.
Yeah.
directly
So-
to the east is
so-
scenic view.
Yep.
So all those stubs going into scenic view are already spoken for, so there was really no other option, so.
Okay.
that's
Well,
why
no,
we did
this,
the light.
it sounds like that was a good, that sounds like it's a good solution to me.
It's a good solution, but it's still a lot of a lot of homes in
Well-
and out of there.
I would also point out, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, that compromise, that was part of the agreement.
Yes, that was part of the approval for the preliminary plan.
Right, and this would be, I assume this is very similar to what we have on Broad Street now with a light that's active and so forth. So would that light also, I know this answer, but I'll ask it anyhow. So there is a time frame where that light wouldn't be active, it would be a flashing light, and it would only be until so many houses were built, and then it would be active. Is that how this was set up, or would they have to go active immediately?
That was not discussed.
Okay,
That wasn't going to be discussed until the plans proceeded.
okay, well, we're probably getting too deep in the weeds anyhow,
I think we probably.
because we're supposed to be talking about your standards.
Yeah.
so.
I did wanna make one more point, and, with respect to this site. It's a beautiful site, but it has its challenges in terms of, like, we'll be developing the site. So, there's a lot of wet areas, that we will have to navigate through, which gets expensive. And all of that gets factored into the price of the house. And we've looked at those numbers preliminarily, and it is expensive.
Sure.
So, we have to factor all that in to determine whether or not it's a business decision that we're willing to make.
Sure, I totally understand that.
Let me ask one more quick question. Scott, if we just went through the PP deed system, or through that zoning classification, what other things would be changed besides potentially a front-load garage and a porch with the depth requirement? What other things could be on the table to be changed?
Essentially anything. Since it's a planned development district, anything could be proposed, it's just the council's discretion whether they choose to approve it or not.
Okay. So I would be just careful that we would if we wanted to do that, and you've identified these two items, that would be something that would be a limitation in my mind, at least, to say, hey, at least stay with what was originally in the plan, but if these were your two options or two items that you wanted us to look at, that you would change only those two items. I'm going back to the foresighted and tell you that that's probably off, at least in my book, it's off the table.
And as if I'm gonna, of the three items I put on
Good,
here,
yeah.
and I didn't put 10 on here.
I understand.
It would be the third. I mean, I understand that one. I understand where it came from. Yeah, because of I mean, there were a lot of houses built that were blank walls and that didn't go over well,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
this is in response to that.
yep, exactly, the pendulum, so.
I would just say one more thing. Did you have something else?
Oh, I'm good.
You sure?
Positive?
No, we appreciate you coming in. We do realize, this is the residential development's coming in. But I would say this to anyone that came in, Pulte, Ryan, I'm sure there's 6 other ones, but, I think that, like I said earlier, just to reiterate, Patasko's got a lot of ground that's sitting out there, and there's a big Intel thing coming, and hopefully someone.
I haven't heard about that.
Have you not heard about that? I just heard about it the other day. But my point is that I think that if investment can be made into meeting those standards, I think that there's a lot of potential for that being used in other places. So, and to me, the developers that are coming in, and how can we work with you, and how can we meet this? And I think, I guess, we're willing to work with you. We hope you're willing to invest in us, because I think there's a lot of potential here for you.
Well, we'd like to be here, which is why I'm here tonight, and wanted to see what kind of feedback we can get. Like I said, we're interested. It's a great community, and we have a housing demand that is unprecedented, and we
Yeah.
want to do our part to meet it.
And Andy said it too. He made a great point. Is and I don't want to place blame on what happened 20 years ago, but I guess kind of the best way to put it is kind of a free for all, and we're seeing a lot of those homes that were built early 2000s, mid 2000s that there really wasn't. It was just kind of go build. We're feeling that impact now, 20 years later. We don't want to make those same. I don't want to call them mistakes. They are what they are, but we want to do better, I guess is what we're saying. So using the history as kind of a lesson to learn from, and we owe that to our residents to protect that. So
I do have one quick other thing, just to ask Scott. Scott, in those two items that Jim had brought up, do you feel like those are something that are so outside of our standards that they can't be over reviewed and getting passed? Do you see those as being monumental items?
I do not.
Okay, I don't either.
Granted, the decision is not mine.
I understand.
but-
I don't either, and I would just look to you guys to be a little creative to kind of, if we can't meet those and we can't get those to happen, then be creative on how we can dress it up a little bit to make it that you guys get what you want, which is those standards to be relaxed, and then if there's something that can be done, just as I said, to kind of put that streetscape in a way that we are visioning it and making it'll make your community better anyhow, in general.
And when we build a community, we make sure there are amenities for the residents, for the kids, a place to play, open space that is shared open space, and that's what people want these days, less yard and more open space, and all of those things will be included, but we want to make sure, this will be a fantastic site for paths around the community for people to get out and move around, and all of our communities have those types of things, and there's, as you can see, there's a lot of ponds, and we will try to activate those as part of the open space as well. It's not just the houses, but to us, it's the whole community.
okay, all right. Well, we appreciate you coming out and talking to us, and
Yep.
hopefully we can work together and come up with something really good.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thanks for listening.
Yep, thank you very much. Bill, thanks.
All righty. Scott, I'm gonna let you just keep going.
All right, the next would be the Innovation CRA. If you recall, we discussed that at the last development committee the city as
Yes.
shown on the future land use map. So as part of one of the goals in the comprehensive plan was to continue to market that, and one of the better ways to do that with this CRA. So as we discussed last time, the development committee asked us to move forward and begin the development of a CRA for that area. We have worked with Montrose, and they've done a heck of a lot of work on this to this point. There are certain requirements you have to meet in order to file with the Ohio Department of Development. The first of which is the housing study, and then with the email received, there was a total of 24 other items that were included that we didn't want to burden you with a big stack of papers. But what this does, it shows the need for the CRA, and that's part of the filing process. We've also included a general timeline of how we see that's playing out moving forward. Just wanted to get development committee's thoughts on that to make sure we're on the right track and you folks want us to keep going.
Yeah, two questions, Scotty. This, I'm looking at this right here in your packet.
Yes.
I guess, first off, I didn't realize we went past Clark State, but is that just a general area? I mean, for example, look at the top right-hand corner. Why wouldn't we just continue taking that all the way over to Summit up to Morse?
It's Jersey.
Oh, the line's there, the roads aren't the line.
So
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
I
the
believe so.
northern boundary.
That would make
is
sense.
Morse Road and the city limits. The west is
Okay.
Dixon. City limits county line, south
Okay.
is Graham, and east is Summit.
I did not realize we went,
So that basically
Over.
reflects the entire purple
okay.
of the innovation district. and the
Understood.
comprehensive plan.
That curve in Morse, it goes, okay. That makes sense. So I guess I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead here, but I definitely, me personally, I'm definitely in favor of you continuing. I obviously want to hear Andy's thoughts. And Tim and I talked about this on the phone. I just want to clarify for all you and get Andy's input on it. I know we talked about CRA and TIF. And my understanding from the last meeting was that the CRA takes quite a while, but we were looking into both of them. We weren't just doing, we didn't decide we weren't doing a TIF. We were just looking at the benefits of it. So are you still looking into, obviously you're looking into a CRA, great. I know TIFs are quicker, but I thought we were also gonna continue to pursue that and just look at our options on that. Am I wrong on that?
We had discussed the possibility of doing both, the CRA and the TIF, but if I recall from the last meeting, there was discussion that instead of doing like a generic blanket TIF, that if there was a need for a TIF, we could negotiate directly with the developer and tailor it more towards their needs instead of just a generalized one.
See, I was confused on that. I felt like we thought it'd be, I'm trying to recall it. I get that, but do you see the benefit of, when I say the benefit, is it a benefit or is it more marketable if the property already has a TIF, or do you think that you wait? I thought we were gonna kind of look at doing a blanket, and maybe I misunderstood.
I think the CRA is the big piece.
I get that.
Because
I do
that's the
get that.
tax incentive. I think, because I think the main focus of this is the large open parcels to the east of the CRA area, that it might be more beneficial to speak with the developer and say, we're open to doing a TIF, and we'll work with you directly to establish this TIF, and then we can make sure that it's tailored specifically for them. So, because we could have one that is there that we can use, but it might be better to say, we're open to doing this and establishing this, let's work to a general or a conclusion based upon your specific development. So I
Right.
can see some benefit to that. Having the CRA in place, that we talk to people, it's available. Also, we know that, the Development Committee Council is open to creation of a TIF if needed specifically for your project.
Okay.
That was my recollection.
Andy, is that what you?
Yep, absolutely, and the other part was the school, getting the school involved, so, because through the TIP process, we'd have to have their
Okay.
buy-in for that, so.
Okay, so right now, we're all in agreement, I'm either way, it's good with me, we're just heading with the
The
CRA.
the only question I have is in this, it's still incorporating those large residential lots to the west. And is there any benefit to including those? Because is there, probably not going to be such that, subject to development, of a large, assembly of properties, which are very expensive with expensive houses on. Does it make any sense to have those in there, or is it only because you're trying to get to a certain acreage for the CRA?
As part of the housing study, you have to show the need for reinvestment. So if we just went with the properties to the east, there's one house. So this allows us, with the establishment of the CRA, to show the need with housing reinvestment. Because it's initially CRA is designed for housing reinvestment, but it can be used for economic development purposes. So if we were to limit it, we can't prove that if
So
you look at
You're
some
using
of
the house there on
other
Clark
pages-
State, on the north side of Clark State as one of the houses that you.
Yeah, if you look at photo number 2, the whole back fell
I
off,
got
so we need to
Yeah.
establish that.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm all, any issues, keep
No
going.
issues for me.
Okay,
Do you need anything from us, Scott?
No, sir, we'll just keep chugging along.
keep chugging. Last thing is, your strategies list.
So this is I put together in terms of time frame: short, medium, long, and ongoing. So short is 0 to 3 years, medium 3 to 6, and long is 6+ years. And all this was taken from the comprehensive plan, but I condensed it down just to planning and zoning department specific items. So with this, for example, on the first page, 4.2.2 is the Northern Innovation District. So with the CRA and what we're doing now, we're underway with that, checking that box. The bottom of that page, it talks about impact fees, and on the next page, it talks about the Summit Broad intersection, and we're working on establishing a TIF in that location. So those items are underway. With looking through this, the first action, for example, is to update the zoning code. And as we look through some of these other items, we kind of thought, how many of these, if we were to update the zoning code, could we knock 5, 6, 7 of these off in one fell swoop? So we're investigating that to see, instead of doing incremental code changes, maybe we can do one, cast a wider net and include all those. So we're looking into that, how to best address those items.
Okay.
Yeah, this is great. Do you think there's any chance any of the other departments could do this? Sorry to ask that question, but yeah, this is exactly what we were talking about doing, was taking the comprehensive plan and really boiling it down into a to-do list and kind of put some timeframes on it. Yeah, I think that's exactly what we need to do to make sure that obviously to make the plan comprehensive, it has to do this, plus all the other things that were suggestions and requirements, I guess, in a way. I think that was part of our discussion, and that whole thing was, okay, each department, are you guys good with what kind of assignments this thing gives you? And we heard that everybody was, so, yeah, I think that's what we have to do to really make the comprehensive plan work. And I'm gonna get on my box here and say, that's how the future land use works, is that the whole comprehensive plan comes along with it. I think it's very important, extremely important.
I think too, I don't disagree with you at all, Andy, but I think that, maybe we could give them, maybe say by November, like the end of the year, each director bring us this, every year, like, just where you at?
Well, yeah,
I mean,
that's,
it doesn't need to be,
To be honest, it's zoning heavy,
yeah.
so that's why I think we started with zoning.
and once you've created this, like you have, Scott, I mean, it's not that, it's just going in and checking stuff off as you get it done, and, maybe annually the directors give us one of these,
It
and,
would be very light in the utility side,
okay,
because for obvious reasons, we only serve a third of the people. There certainly are milestones within the Parks and Recreation section.
Yep.
And I don't remember.
There's streets and there's some stuff in the public service department. Yep, absolutely.
And there are some with that, and with this, I don't know if you recall with the comprehensive plan, it'll say responsible parties, and then they've identified multiple. So there might be some of these that work with Parks and Rec, there might be some of these that work with public service, et cetera, that they'll be kind of looped in as we check these off.
Well, I think also it had council and it had
Council.
the administrator on some of them, and just things that I think some of these committees could help with also. I think this is a two-way street, this isn't a one-way street, this is, get the input on it, let's work through it, and whether that's with the administrator, whether that's, financial, there was some, I believe there were a couple for Jamie in there, if I remember correctly.
Probably, I don't remember.
But anyhow, just, I think this is a great thing to put on the front part of your desk, and when, you know, when there's time to work on it, that'd be great, and if, you gotta remember in some of these years too, I mean, we're getting into what? That comprehensive plan's getting to be 18 months ago?
It was July of 21.
Okay, so 12 months ago, getting to be 12 months ago, time flies.
It does.
So we're not, you know, we're right in the right spot to kinda hit on it. So.
Yeah.
This is good, this is really good,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you,
thanks
Scott.
very much.
We'll continue to work through that, and, you know, if we get the CRA, we can start checking boxes, then move on to the zoning update, but
Okay.
just trying to get us kind of the most bang for our buck if we were to do a code amendment.
While we're here, anything else you guys need to hit under other? I think, I mean, I don't see anything on the horizon right now. I don't think we need a meeting unless something pops up.
You know, I might say that, my meeting is set for the Refugee Road MOU.
It is.
It's gonna be Monday,
Okay.
so.
I know that's kind of
That's very, that's the initial.
that's a joint streets development committee kind of.
It is, and I'm always at a loss sometimes to figure out, you know, do you wanna, where do you give the update? And there's some dual representation from council depending on whether it's utilities and development or whether it's streets and development. But that's just one of, you know, we've talked about that here. We talk about it more at streets probably,
Okay.
so.
Well, how about this? When you guys have something that we need to have a development committee meeting, we'll get one on the books. But I think for now we're in good shape. It's going to get busy.
That's an understanding.
Calm before the storm.
I know that
Right.
it's calm.
You ever heard that intel? You ever heard that intel thing?
I know nothing. Sergeant Schultz, I know nothing.
All right. If nobody has anything else, we'll motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn? Oh, second.
Second.
You motion to adjourn.
I motion to
You
adjourn.
said motion.
Lee.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
All right.